So I'm going to make this video outside, but before I do, I just wanted to say, often I think about making a video outside, but then I think, oh, what if the neighbors hear me talking? I'm going to sound like a crazy person. And then I start to get paranoid that they're listening, which is so ridiculous. But anyway, so I'm just going to fight through that little stupid fear. Because yeah, I just felt like I really want to transmit whatever energies, whatever message wants to come through while being outside in the outdoors. Okay, talk soon. So my intention for today is just to feel into the energy and to transmit energy also through this video, because I could just feel an energy, and it's like some days you just wake up and you feel it. You feel there's a shift, or you feel there's extra light coming in. Also, I had a walk and I had this lovely experience with tree energy, which I shared in the video just before this one. So there was extra good energy around. Often I can feel when a shift has happened, and you just know. I remember the very first time I felt that, before I even understood anything about all this stuff. And it was just a knowing. So I was like, something's different, right? So interestingly enough, there's actually a measure of the Earth's energy called the Schumann's resonance, and it's been known to go up in these massive spikes when this light comes in, and the numbers go up. And so wouldn't be surprised if on most of those days, you know, they're the days that I'm feeling it. And many people who are sensitive to the energy or can feel that change. So that would actually be a really interesting test. But okay, so let's start with now in sort of the 20s of November. We go through these cycles, right, where we go through all the zodiac signs. As you know, we've all got our own sign. And so when the time comes to shift into that new sign, so for example, the 21st of November is the first date of Sagittarius. So any babies born 21st November for the next month until the end date is said to be Sagittarian. So during that time, we feel the Sagittarian influence, the energy, right? So just imagine, you know, that I always talk about energy, and there's just so much of it. Usually, for the most part, when I talk about energy, it's just in general a feeling, right? It's a feeling of what's happening cosmically, it's a feeling of what's happening collectively. And then on top of that, you have all this planetary, all this stuff going on. And there's so much. We also have the numbers, the numerology, and that's an energy again. Every number vibrates just like everything vibrates, right? So when the Sagittarian energy comes through, it's like a ray of sunshine. So think about it. Think about this time of year. Interestingly, when we move towards the Christmas season, then you get the change into the next sign, right? And there'll be that influence. But then that would be a good example of, let's say, those weeks leading up to Christmas where everything's usually chaotic. That's another energy on its own. So that energy then becomes a kind of predominant stamp. On top of that, if you have something like an eclipse, then wow, just, you know, that's super energy, right? Or a super moon or something like that, that overrides it, or that just sort of adds to it. It's like the angels are showing me now, it's like stockpiling one after another after another. There's always this movement of energy happening. So what I'm feeling into the Sagittarian influence is a sense of opening up, a hunger to know, to want to understand things or even experience things, maybe even have an adventure, stuff like that. And that seems so contradictory to the times that we're in right now with a lot of uncertainty and constriction. And a lot of that has been intensified this year by Saturnian energy and Capricornian energy, which is very much linked together, which is very much that sense of tightening, restriction, And that's where we saw the laws coming in, and society was clenched and clamped down this year. The angels are just showing me now a symbol of a car wheel clamp, and a vehicle's natural want is to move, and we're being clamped down. They're showing me too that it's just one tire, right? You know how it's just one wheel that's clamped. They're showing me that this is just the beginning. I mean, I've been feeling this anyway. 1, 2. So they talk about that second wave. Let's call that the second clamp. Some of us have already experienced that. Some of you are starting to experience that now. But there's a third, fourth, heading towards a fifth, okay, and so on. So there's one wave after another. It's not to say that that's all necessarily COVID or the same. It could be different strains of the virus. It could be something else. It could be in reference to, as a metaphor, to other restrictions connected to other things, other plans, other agendas. But the idea is that right now, with this one wheel clamped, there's a lot more room to move still, even though it's clamped, because there's three other wheels that are free. But once the second is locked in, you're that much more bound. The third, again, fourth, click, they got us, right? So that's that feeling of restriction was extra intensifying for people. And so coming up now, as we're entering this period since the recent supermoon was like the sort of opening up of the gateways to this new energy, and now we're moving into the eclipse season where everything's going to be intensified again. But to just peel back now, peel back those layers and come back to right now in November. On November 30th, we enter the first eclipse, which is a full moon eclipse in Gemini. Before that, on the 28th of November, something I've mentioned in my last energy update, Neptune is moving direct. Whenever we have planets moving direct, it's a positive sort of forward moving progression, right? And then when they move backwards, like retrograde, like Mercury retrograde, for example, but there's other retrogrades as well, it's a feeling of being stuck or moving backwards. So it really is quite literal. So the Neptunian energy is very sort of fantastical, very imaginative, very lucid, like lucid dreaming. So you might find yourself entering now towards the end of November, roughly maybe also into early December, a feeling of lucidity. And this is where you need to be careful not to get too ungrounded, flighty, all over the place, daydreamy to the point of banging into things, having little accidents, or just being out there but nowhere. Sometimes I'll say to a client, you know, if I feel it, you're out there everywhere but you're nowhere, right? So we need to come back into our center, into our whole now, and that's part of the message for today. I think this is what happens to us intuitives who give messages, is we feel when it's time to deliver. There's no thinking involved. It's a feeling. It moves through you. You just activate it. I'm activated to make a video. Okay, so it just moved again because the sun's just shifted. So what's really interesting about the Neptunian influence is that it feels like it's a wave, a blanket that just, actually more like a fog blanket that just whiffs through, right? Whiffs through, and it has this ethereal quality, and if we're sensitive to it, it's like we just move into this sense of, it's a mixture of higher vibration with a feeling of intuitiveness in an ethereal way. And so what's interesting about it, I feel, is that with the upcoming eclipse, which is a more intense energy, eclipses are known to reveal what was otherwise concealed. And it's also an increasingly intuitive time now leading up to the eclipse. where that super new moon energy of recent times sort of open things up, like the floodgates is what it's feeling like. And then those floodgates sort of just push us forwards towards this eclipse. And then, as I said, that little Neptunian drift of energy comes in and we get a whiff of it. At the same time, we're having really intense and vivid dreams coming up. You might go through periods of exhaustion and then having all this energy. There might be periods where you feel more intense. What we really are going to have to keep in mind, what I said earlier about that feeling of groundedness and centeredness, it's so vital now to come back into your center, which is also why having a walk in nature is just, it just does everything. I mean, listen to those birds, just feel it now. It's beautiful, right? That's the connection right there. And this is where you can step out of that ego and that mind that's 24/7 bombarding you, right? And so much is going to be going on, right? So we have to step out of the politics, as I mentioned in my recent update. Step out and observe, because all that's also going on, right? But it's quite a heavy and awkward energy, and that feeling of unresolved is so overhanging, and it's almost like the cherry on the top of that COVID feeling of not knowing and when's it going to end and when's it back to normal and all that stuff. So it's all exasperated. So do you want to feel exasperated, overwhelmed, heavy, irritated? Or do you just want to step back and realize, okay, get in touch with those feelings, know that they're there, allow that energy to move around you, but step out of it so that you're out of the box and you're seeing a wider perspective. It's, the angels are saying, it's readjusting the framework, or the lens on a camera, where it's a bit blurry, a bit foggy, and then it just needs a little adjusting, and that's shifting your perception, which shifts your reality. And you know, that's what we do when we enter higher dimensions, for example, or shift from one sort of reality to another. We all know what that's like, okay? It happens to everybody. It's just that some people are more attuned to it, and when it happens they can really feel that, especially when you're lifting from a lower to a higher. And it's that awareness that catapults change of higher proportions also, because you are being conscious, and that conscious awareness is what allows that reality to expand further. And it's like putting your feelers out so that you're more at one with things, and they're working on a more universal, harmonious level for what is right and integral for you. So that's where we come back to staying centered. Stay centered in the eye of the hurricane, no matter what. There's going to be a lot of talk. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out on the media. It's going to just go like madhouse times a million. There's different facets. There's the political agendas. And I'm feeling not just Trump and Biden, I'm feeling French politics, some side countries there, possibly Russia too, but some side countries, Europe, UK, and Australia. We've got our bit down here as well, but it feels like there's different, it's all connected like to this super octopus. However, you know, in Australia here, we've really been the guinea pigs here, especially in Melbourne, where things were really being tested and now to be implemented elsewhere, one way or another. So really interesting. So we've got that going on, that dynamic. There's the COVID thing is the grumbling thing underneath all that. And so this full lunar eclipse in Gemini has that Gemini feeling of community coming together and really acknowledging, you might start to feel that feel of who's my true friend, and I really am grateful for that true friend, right? Versus the non. And so it's a matter of aligning yourself with those who you connect with, even if it's just an internet friend, right? I've got plenty of those. There's nice people that you chat to on the internet. Doesn't have to be in your real life, or a bit of both, but it's appreciating who listens and connects with you, and there's that sense of bond and appreciating that, and the rest can go. But also the angels show me with when we think about others that we don't really connect with, or that drive us crazy or whatever, we don't want to get into that crazy energy in the next while. We have to look after ourselves. We have to be smart about it. So they're saying put up a peace sign, as in it doesn't need to mean that you agree and you're like kumbaya, kumbaya my lord. Okay, it's just your peace sign is up, like a treaty. You know, when two armies have been at war and they're like, you know what, I've had it, F this. Let's just put up a peace sign. Let's just like regroup. Okay, so it's a period of regrouping. So something interesting I want to mention about the media is that it's going to be overwhelming, right? The left, right and center. There's also going to be that Christmas stuff creeping in, the economy talks, climate change I feel is going to be some kind of issue too, side issue coming up. Putting all that aside, let's get centered here. The message I want to really share with you right now is that the media is going to be more than ever upping their game, okay? And we need to understand that it's all propaganda. It's propaganda, okay? Or propaganda. So they are involved in shaping and controlling our minds, and because, you know, we can't always blame the reporters, it's what's beyond that, right? Who owns these media companies? Something I recently intuited. I wasn't going to share this yet, but okay. The letters F, O and X are each the number 6 in numerology. So put that together and you get the word Fox. Think of it, 666, Fox News. Unfortunately, I intuited Oxfam may not be as in the light as we think. These are no accidents, right? So it's a controlled paradigm where they're trying to control what we think. So here's an example. So this morning I briefly popped on and saw the news, and it said there was a survey done, and about 50% of Australians, very topical, very contentious, okay? And they said immediately after that, this is a really serious concern. And I said to my husband straight away, see, this is what they do. It's so obvious if you're onto it, right? I respect anyone who believes in that. But I don't like it. I've always felt intuitively that it's wrong. So it's been a real battle with that. However, that's okay. You don't have to agree. It's all good, right? It's all good. We can disagree. So straight away after that, the host said, not only was it an extreme concern, but we're really going to have to level up. They said, we're going to have to get some heavy messaging out there, all the so-called benefits and good things about them, because that's the agenda. It's been the agenda the whole time. It's been the agenda the whole time. It's all part of it, okay? So it doesn't feel right. So this is what they do. They say it, they realize, oh God, half of Aussies don't want this, or they're a bit sus about it. What are we going to do? Propaganda, okay? So that anyone that doesn't agree about it is an anti-VER, and which is also a BS term that has been made up. It's okay to wonder what's inside these things. It's okay to challenge it. Just wanted to show you like an example, okay? This is what they do. And so you know that what's going to come up now, it's just so obvious, is all these messages about pro-Vs, right? Well, unfortunately that V word is a censored word, which is also ridiculous. So So you'll start to get all this high messaging, and also rubbishing about the people, the anti ones. But did you know there are so many people that just question it, that are just like, I'm not sure, you know, show me the proof, what is in them, let's do proper testing, then it might be okay, right? Just, you know, logical, normal people, nothing too weird and out there. The lunar eclipse, this full moon, this full bloody moon, is like, there's this opposition between the sun energy, which is bright, life force giving energy, and the moon, which is our intuition, our intensity, our sensitivity, right? And it's almost like a clashing, or it's like the crossing over. And so this brings up the shadows. So I often talk about the shadows as being the stuff coming up under the surface, which always happens in these eclipse seasons, but they can happen at various times when you feel stuff is starting to rise up. Which is also why it's important now to get centered, because you already have things that have been rising up, anger issues, things to do with people, politics, whatever, about, you know, situation right now, and things are going to get exasperated, okay, piled up. So we need to remove the possibility of stockpiling negative emotions and energy from everywhere by just coming in, being centered, and walking through it. Walking through it without taking it all on. And that way, when your own true stuff comes up to the surface, do examine it, do notice it, and think, okay, yes, now's the time to heal it, okay? Or coming up, I have to process this, I have to deal with this, one way or another. You can push it and hide it, it's just gonna get worse, right? So be grown up, put on your big girl or boy pants, okay? This is, you know, buckle up. The next few months are gonna be quite a ride, okay? And also, as we shift from one energy of another, from 2020, which is a very restrictive year and a hard-working year, and even if you had great bouts of not working, there was a inner discipline. And then moving into this period of new period that we're already starting to feel, of changes, shifts happening, a lot of a different kind of uncertainty and a movement, and new energies coming in. And there's going to be a lot more influence also in December. Okay, it got too windy, so I just want to wrap up this video and say to just tune in, right? Choose to tune in rather than allowing yourself to get embroiled in the mess, because there's going to be a lot of mess, okay? So this year is different. It's different for a reason. It's being here to teach us, to awaken us, and it actually is and will be brightening us up. Our lights are turning on. It's just that as soon as that even just starts to happen for a little iota, the dark creep up and add their intensity, okay? And so that's what we're all feeling. This is a massive time of change on Earth, okay? So I'm gonna get really more into that, more detail into that, as well as December energy and more information about eclipses in my next video for December.